Okay. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to talk to you. MidAmerican is always excited to talk about a wind power program, as you'll see by the statistics I show you, and you've seen a lot of numbers tonight. What I'm going to show you is MidAmerican alone, not the state of Iowa, not the United States, things like that. If you don't know who MidAmerican is, we do serve you electric and gas in this town. We serve about 700 customers, electric, 700 customers, natural gas. Major part of our electric business is in the state of Iowa. About 90% of our business is, roughly 10 in Illinois, and a very small piece in South Dakota. And gas, we serve those states as well. We're the largest gas distribution supplier in South Dakota. And we also serve 2 very small communities in Nebraska for natural gas. You know, I think I agree a lot with what's been said about policy giving us the desired result of more wind energy. The policy that really encouraged MidAmerican to get involved and show you the billions of dollars that we've invested in this state really occurred around the 2000-2001 time period. If you remember back in 2000, if you remember back that long ago, state of California went through an energy crisis where energy prices went through the roof in California. And Governor Vilsack at the time, the governor of Iowa, looked and said his takeaway from Iowa not experiencing that was to become a net exporter of power, of energy. So he set in motion, along with the legislature, the Iowa Utilities Board you've heard about, the Office of Consumer Advocate, that's the state group that represents customers and utilities, and we got together and said, what do we need, what kind of policies do we need to encourage generation to be built in Iowa? And out of that came the idea that the regular regime of regulatory thing, utilities are very capital intensive. We need lots of dollars to build plants. And then we recover those dollars over a long period of time from our customers. In the old regime, it used to be we would build the plant, start serving our customers, try to put it into rates, and then it would be challenged whether it was prudent or not to invest those dollars. So the company was totally at risk for those dollars. And there was huge disallowances in the early 1980s that resulted from that regime. From the mid-80s to the mid-90s, or to 2000, nothing was built in this state for generation because of that hindsight review. So what we did in 2001 was create legislation, House File 577, that out of this partnership of regulatory and private companies, that said we could go before the Iowa Utilities Board, demonstrate the need and justify the plant before we even invest $1. And the board would tell us if it was prudent, and also we could ask for several different kind of rate-making policies. Because of that, we have built a $400 million gas plant on the southeast part of Des Moines. We have built a $1.2 billion supercritical coal plant in Council Bluffs. That's the largest investment ever in the state of Iowa. And we've invested over $2 billion in wind because of that policy change. And I'll go through, there's other things that encourage us to do it, but tonight we'll just focus on wind. Just know that MidAmerican since 1990 has had energy efficiency programs. This year our goal is to save 1.5% of electric energy use, and we'll spend over $300 million over the next 5 years on energy efficiency. Right now, given the climate, what can we do to serve our customers? It's energy efficiency and renewable. You won't see another coal plant built for a lot of obvious reasons. And so to meet those needs of our customers, those are the 2 tools that we have. To start off, since we're at college, we're going to have a wind power quiz, so get ready. If you don't answer it right, I'm going to talk for 3 hours. Wind power review, talk a little bit about our highlights, and talk about a little bit what we see in the future for wind. If you're following this might be easy to answer. Now remember, this is just MidAmerican. It's not Iowa. It's not the United States. It's not the world, as David was showing. But how much of MidAmerican's nameplate capacity comes from renewable energy resources? Is it 12%? How many think 12%? How many think 17%? A few. How many think 20%? this was your last number, how many would think 20%? Yeah, it is 20% of our nameplate capacity. Now, it's important to note that you go nameplate because a megawatt from a coal plant or a megawatt from a nuke plant is not the same as a megawatt from a wind plant, because as we talked about before, been mentioned, the wind doesn't blow all the time. So what does this mean to our customers? I mean, if you look at, why have we done this? The wind projects really have facilitated extension. We have not raised electric rates since 1995. If someone can name another product that they buy, the rates that have not increased or has gone down, please let me know. We've done this because of the revenues that the wind produces for us. Number one, it's federal policy to pay the federal production tax credit. That's around 2 cents a kilowatt hour and escalates a little bit every year. MidAmerican wouldn't have built any wind because we couldn't have justified it for our customers in terms of cost had it not been for the federal production tax credit. Very key. We also, by putting wind on our system, we're able to sell and export more wind, which is part of Iowa's goal. That generates revenue from wholesale to help offset costs for our retail customers. So that's part of the huge revenue stream. We also have sold some renewable energy credits. You now can sell attributes of wind energy to others. And what you do, you don't have to physically move the energy over the wire. You give them a piece of paper that says, I will not claim this wind energy. You can claim this wind energy, and they pay you for it. So there's some revenue there. We also take a very small capacity credit. But in our business model, we're able to show the Iowa Utilities Board that over a 20-year life, our customers, based on all the assumptions here, will not see rate increases because of wind, because of these revenue sources. Here's all our wind projects, and I'll show you the locations of these. You can see started back in 2005 since we built our first wind projects. Some of these, and I'll show you in a location, but we put online over 600 megawatts in 2008. We've gone before the Iowa Utilities Board now 7 times to get approval to build wind generation, and we've got, to date, we've got 1,284 megawatts, or about a third of what this state has produced. We're the #1 owner of wind generation among rate-regulated utilities in the United States. I think, is the way I look, us and a few others have really given the economic development boost to this state, and why they can go out and sell Iowa as a good center for manufacturing. We continue to improve the overall carbon footprint, one of the main goals that we do, that we built. And like I said, we've invested over $2.2 billion without raising rates in this state. Here's the location, and you saw this map a little while ago. Don't know where, obviously, you folks are from and what you might have seen in driving the interstate. But the newest projects are along Interstate 80. You might see those as you go from Des Moines to Council Bluffs. Some are very close to the interstate. The one at Adair is Siemens turbines. That was our first time for installing those turbines. The rest of ours mainly are GE turbines, 1.5 megawatts. We have Mitsubishi turbines of a small amount up at Century. The other ones on the, if you head up Interstate 35 from Des Moines, heading up to Minneapolis, right at the Highway 20 intersection, we do have a wind farm there. It used to be called the Boondocks area. And then up around Carroll and north of, around Pomeroy and others are some turbines. The yellow is the best wind sites in the state of Iowa. And I will say this comes from the Iowa Energy Center. I'm on the advisory council for that center. We are going to put out a new map. It's going to be a much more interactive map. So if you live somewhere in Iowa, you can get it right down to your site, what that wind looks like at a lot of different levels. So this map, you won't see much of that anymore after this year. But the yellow is good wind sites, the green's a little bit better, and then the blues are not as good as you go down. So we try to locate. Reason why we're not in northwest Iowa is, and David mentioned this before, the transmission costs too much for transmission to put wind turbines up there, and that's a big part of the economics as well. Generating capacity, what has all this wind done for us? In the year 2000, coal was 70% of our capacity by fuel. Nuclear was 10.8. Natural gas was around 20. Move ahead to 2008. At the end, after we put in all that wind, coal is now decreased from 70 down to 53%. And nuclear's dropped from 10 down to 7.6 because of a purchase that we no longer have. And natural gas stays about the same. And there's our wind at 20%. What has that done to our carbon intensity? We've decreased our carbon intensity by 16% since 2005. And you can see the large slope. That is sloping down because of wind energy, obviously a zero carbon generating source. Just a couple things on wind. I didn't know if you'd be interested or not, but landowner relationships are extremely important. That turbine's going to be there for 20 years. When we put up a transmission line, we usually put it up and the landowner won't see us probably unless it is ice storm, if you have trouble or you're doing some maintenance, but not very often. When you have a wind turbine, they see you a lot. You need a strong relationship with the landowner. Like I say, that's going to be there for a long time. The wind resource is a huge deal. We like to have at least 1 year's worth of site data because that's your fuel. Once that's in the ground, if you put it in a bad fuel source or bad wind area, you've got a bad investment for the next 20 years. So you've got to be right on how you site those. A lot of science and math goes into how you figure that out. Transmission capacity must be available. We put in over $50 million of transmission facilities with all the wind that we've installed. It's becoming tighter. It would be good. We're taking a look at how to build that going forward. There's a lot of politics and a lot of policy in that's being discussed at this time. The project design, if you look at, first of all, these turbines are upwind turbines. In other words, if you go around and you look at one out in the field and it's turned and the blades are faced into the wind, and they do that. The original design was downwind or after the tower. These are before the tower. What they found out in the early designs was that the blades were being affected as it passed by the tower when it was downwind, and you got that variation. They moved it upwind, so as you go, you can tell the direction of the wind. 3 obviously is the tower, and 4 is the large nacelle that you saw Governor Culver in the one picture that the development folks had. From there, the wires are all underground in the field, so the farmer can farm around these. These turbines take about 1/4 of an acre out of production. They're paid a monthly or they're paid annually a fee for having our right to be there, and it has an access road. But all the wires are underground. They're fed to a main substation, stepped up to the transmission. That's bullet circle 2 there, and then it goes out into the grid, where we have quite a bit of sophisticated monitoring on that. At our main control center, they can see what each turbine is producing or not producing and why. Wind in our future, we plan to build more if we can economically show that it's beneficial to our customers, which we believe we can. Last spring, we went before the Utilities Board for the 7th application to construct up to an additional 1,000 megawatts of wind through 2012. We did this in response to a lot of things. 1, we've got a lot of experience with wind now. 2, we think we've got the business case that can justify business or economics to our customers, as well as the EPA actions and possible federal actions to regulate carbon. We've gone out for an RFP. We're in discussion with a lot of vendors and developers at this time. There was a developer that challenged the IU Utilities Board, and that introduces some certainty, but we're going to move ahead if we can find some economical turbines to purchase. And that's the end.